Debt is good only if you master it.
Karibuni class, wadau na wadau det. If you're joining us, manze, becoming CEO, tunaendelea tu kugrow na hizi conversations. As I keep telling you, mi niko class, I'm still learning. And today, leo manze, class yetu ni class interesting because ni class inaguza kila mtu. In fact, inatuguza sisi as a country. Today we are talking about debt. Manze, I'm sure kila mtu ashai kuwa na deni. I mean, that is certain. And personally, on my journey as a CEO, one of the things I had to struggle with was debt. Running a company when you have no idea on how to run a company, one of the things you run into is debt. Na kuna point ilifika, man, we were about to close down because of debt. And I had to learn the hard way on how to manage my debt. And ni kitu nimekuwa nikiona kwa messages, ni kitu watu wana struggle sana. People have committed suicide because of debt. This is as a country, debt is killing us. So today I'm going to have a gentleman by the name of Roy Okonji, who is a debt and money management coach, life coach, and corporate trainer and author. He strongly believes that everyone was created in a uniquely great way, with unique great potential in order to achieve unique greatness. His background is banking, and we're going to hear a lot about him. He's also an author, my friend. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. He has authored, these are 5 books. The 6th one, it's already at the publishers. I'm still dreaming of writing a book. And yenye may catch my attention hii hapa, nasema debt is good. Acha tutasikia hiyo story. I just want to hear his thoughts on debt, and he'll give us a lot of details about his life. Bwana Roy, karibu sana. Yes, squeezy ni hivi. Ni mbwekse.
Bas.
Roy, thank you so much kwa kukuja. And first of all, debt is good.
Wow, thank you again for having me.
Yeah.
Debt is good only if you master it.
Only if you master it.
Only if you master it. Now, mastering debt in 2 ways.
Mm-hmm.
Number one is that you have to understand how debt works.
Yes.
Before it becomes good, before you sink into it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, unfortunately, very few people understand how debt works.
Yes.
Many people go borrowing blindly. Mm-hmm. Many people borrow because they qualify, mm-hmm. because someone is willing to lend to them.
Yeah.
Okay? Mm-hmm. So you have to be able to master how debt works, to understand the realities of debt before you sink into it. The second mastery is that you should be able to be the master of debt and allow it to be your servant, mm-hmm. so that then you can send it to work for you. Unfortunately, again, very many people become the servants and their lives are dictated by the consequences of the debts they have taken. Mm-hmm. So in those 2 cases, then debt will be good. Mm-hmm. But if you don't understand how it works and you can't make it your servant, keep off.
For you to dedicate your entire life to writing about debt and financial management, I'm curious what nini nilikufikisha hapo? Like wewe na debt mlipatana wapi? What's your story?
Mimi na debt tumepatana, tumeguzana.
Yeah.
As you rightly mentioned in the introduction, I have a banking background.
Yeah.
So after doing a few things, I found myself in the bank. Mm-hmm. I started off as a salesperson, and all my life in the bank, I've been in the credit area doing different things. Mm-hmm. So as a salesperson, I got to understand how lenders package debt, mm-hmm. for it to look enticing for you to take. All right? So I would come and convince you to take up debt. Yes. Then I've also served as a banker, the one you go to when you want to have your loan processed. So I've processed people's loans, and I've observed them, and I would be asking myself different questions. I've seen people, we tell the loan will be ready in 2 weeks, but after 2 hours, the guy is calling you to see if some miracle has happened for the money to come. That means that guy is under some pressure. I've been a debt collector, so I've also pushed people to pay. Hiyo sura sasa ikichange ikae ya kucollect. And during that time I also met the reality of how debt has affected families. Because I would go to homes to push for money, and you can see the family almost cracking. Many times I would leave my guys outside and begin to engage the family in a conversation, because I feel called to a bigger thing than just going to collect money or repossessing the things that needed to be repossessed. Then I've also served as a relationship person for businesses. So I've also seen tiny businesses balloon because of debt, but I've also seen big businesses come down because of mismanagement of borrowed funds. So that is side A of the inspiration, the people I have served while at the bank. Now side B is my own story, my own journey in the world of borrowing. You see, when I got employed, and this happens to very many people, hakuna mtu hutuambia this is how you need to handle money. And the more reason I'm happy that at least we have a conversation about money. We need to have as many of these as possible. So when I got employed, nobody told me how money needs to be managed or handled. If you look at the trainings many corporates have, very rarely will you find them investing in personal financial management for their employees, because largely maybe it benefits the employees more than the company. But what they need to also know is that when the employee is equipped, the company is benefiting. So now, I find myself in a job. The closest HR came to talking to me about money is when I was told that after confirmation, you will qualify to borrow. You'll qualify for a loan. And that time I'm excited as a young man. So you see, borrow for what? Nobody has told me, but at least I'm expecting to borrow when I get confirmed. And when I got confirmed, I did not disappoint. I borrowed all the limit that I had. At that time it was 200,000. And I didn't have a plan. So the money is here. So now I start figuring out what I need to do with it. I like saying in my classes that the average human mind will only need 10 minutes to figure out what to do with money. So yes, I got usage for the money. I bought myself a few new suits to look like the banker that I was in some village town. Furnished my house kidogo, did a few things for my parents, and the money was gone in 4 days. What I didn't know is that I was setting myself up for drama. I was beginning to burn my fingers. So after 30 days, deductions have loaded. So my net pay has now come down. But immediately deductions are loaded, I also get reminded that in the next few months, you'll also qualify for a car loan. Hey.
Yeah, man.
Buddha, you have not seen a young man who grew up in poverty. Abject. Sijui mbona hiyo itu abject. Now, here is an opportunity. Where we grew up in my village, we used to plan to go and see vehicles on the road because the road is a bit far from where we live. So hiyo ni event. Tunaipanga. Shule zikifunga, we will go to stand on the road and see vehicles. Now here is a chance for you to have a vehicle that will be called yours. So when those months passed, I also did not disappoint. Nikashuka na latest registration in that town. It's a tiny town that has about 20 vehicles. So the thought of bringing the 21st vehicle, the next that will break in that town. And that was me. So I brought that car and I felt nice. And I was talk of town for a while and it was good. But again, I didn't know I was fixing myself. End month, deductions loaded. So my net is coming down. What I'm not realizing is that my usage, my expenditure is actually going up. Because now I have fuel, I have service, I have those things I'd never had. And my salary is not increasing. Before long, I started struggling. My remaining net is not enough to take me from end month to end month. So what do? I start doing what everyone in the office is doing. Borrowing from you, borrowing from the other person so that I can bridge between when I'm broke to the next payday. Then I also realized that, and this happens in many workplaces, many employees operate on the same budget curve. Chances are high that in the same setting, wewe ukiwa broke, Sisi wote tuko broke.
Have
you ever gone to a colleague umemnaretia problem yako unamaliza anakuambia tulia. Anaanza yake sasa, then you realize aya kumbe hata una shida,
acha nikope
you actually want to help
yes.
them. So that was the situation. That is when I was introduced to Shylocks. If you know what or who Shylocks are, then you want to imagine the life I started thereafter.
Yeah.
So I began borrowing from these guys every other month. And I borrowed religiously every month. This is what happens when you start borrowing from those people. You see, you are struggling financially. That means your net was not enough.
Yes.
So when you borrow 10 Gs at 20%, for example, you will repay at 12K.
Yes.
So if you are earning 50 Gs, after loan deductions, maybe you now remain with 30 Gs. You've now borrowed 10, you will pay it as 12. So that means you remain with 18.
Yes.
So you still need to borrow 12. Actually more than 12 because your initial budget was operating at 50.
Yeah.
So you need to borrow even more for you to survive. Now the average mind does not borrow 12. You will borrow 15. Kuna kakitu tu kuambia.
Yes.
Katrike ikakushika mfuko.
Ni kweli.
So you'll borrow 15.
Yes.
So you're expanding your debt portfolio, pole pole tu, pole pole. What you're doing to yourself is you're weakening your financial muscle, bila kujua. So I did that month in, month out, year in, year out. Okay? Then, a couple of years down the line, I got transferred to different places and I found myself in Nairobi. Now I want you to imagine, in a rural setting, I'm struggling. Now, nimekuja Nairobi.
Hey, Nairobi.
Nairobi sasa. Viboko zinataka kunichapa sasa. My friend, my borrowing intensified.
Of course.
I borrowed. In the eyes of people, I look very much afloat.
Yeah.
People say I look like money. People cannot believe when I tell them I'm broke. I don't have. Okay? So I am struggling even more. So fast forward, one day, one afternoon, a G4S guy walks into my office. He's carrying a nicely packaged gift. I look at him, he's coming to my desk. The last time I received a gift was during my wedding, a gift packaged like that. And I asked him, are you sure it's mine? The guy says, ni yako. So nikamwambia, wewe simama hapo kwanza. If it's not mine, you go back with it. So I unwrap. The first thing I see is a thank you card. This thank you card is coming from one of my Shylocks, thanking me for continued business and for being the most trustworthy borrower.
What?
Wacha tutulia.
What?
We understand who Shylocks are. For a Shylock to sit down and say, we need to recognize this guy. I leave it to you to imagine how much business I had given.
Oh my goodness.
And this was one of them. There were many. This was one of them. But the package is still heavy. So nafungua tena, and I find this nicely carved trophy. You know, I look at it. I want to be happy that I've been recognized.
Yeah.
But my eyes open wide. And I begin asking myself questions. You mean I'm being recognized for borrowing? Not from the banks. From Shylocks. I stayed there for a while. I released the G4S guy. I looked at this thing. I loved it. But it was sent from heaven to speak to me. Because this is when my turning point started. And that time I had borrowed myself silly. I'm one of those people who used to borrow at the slightest provocation. Let me just break it down for you. I had borrowed to the extent that the interest the Shylocks need from me was more than double my net pay.
What?
Just allow that
Interest.
to sink. Interest alone.
No.
No, I had gotten to a level I cannot service the debts. I can only renew, and you renew by only paying interest. So if you gave me 10 Gs at 20%, I need to give you 2K. Another person 5K, another person like that. Cumulatively, interest alone, more than double my net pay. Out here, people think I'm doing very well. You get? So now, I look at this thing and I tell myself, I have a journey to begin. I need to start my journey to life. This thing was painful. It brought the pictures of the pains I had gone through in the world of death that nobody knew about. In fact, the first day my story was aired, most of the calls I received were from my former colleagues. You mean you are going through this now? Tuko tunajua. How come you were uko tu sawa? We used to come to you for encouragement na vitu kama hizo, and kumbe you are going through this. And I think it's the grace of God. Otherwise, I think every reason to commit suicide like everybody else has done. But when I look back, I think God was preparing me for these conversations. Because now when we talk about this, then we're talking about some reality here. So that is when I started studying debt to understand, how did I get here? What pitfalls, what mistakes did I make along the way? So what do I need to do? I tried looking for books. We didn't have local books about debt management. That's when I discovered Robert Kiyosaki. That's when I was reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I wrote to Robert. I tell Robert, look, I'm in trouble. If you have any book on debt management, send it over. So they respond, they tell me they don't have a book, but they have some articles. So they send me some articles. I read. Most of what they're talking about is stuff for the West. So I pick a few things that can help me in my current situation. So then I start trial and error. So I try this, ikikataa na wachana nayo. I try a different thing. Slowly things started working. It was a long journey. It actually took me 3 years to regain control. Not to clear debt. Actually, when I train guys and I run something called the debt clinic, where I sit with people one-on-one to just journey with them, encourage them, and also help them figure out how they will walk out of this mess. I tell people, my dream is not to see you necessarily at zero debt, but to see you having control. Control means you can meet your landlord and not run away. Control means if I owe you, na nikuone kwa street, I can come, we shake hands and talk about politics. Because we are on the same page. I have given you a plan and it's moving well. Or I have updated you on what is happening and you're okay, and we can talk about other things. When you don't have control, you will not pick calls. When you don't have control, you will not meet people. When you don't have control, you will want to hide. It took me 3 years to regain control. Now, these 3 years, I wish I came with my diaries then. It was trying this, it has not worked. Trying this, and I have borrowed from very many people. So your diary nikikuonyesha, it was work. My debt management story was work in itself.
Roughly how many people did you borrow from?
In the course of this, I'll mention about how to hopefully where to start from if you want to come out of debt. There's something I call the disclosure stage. Disclosure is where you come to terms with your realities. Niko wapi. So when I did my disclosure, I had borrowed from 86 lenders.
What?
This is not fiction. I still have this data because I was working with Excel sheets and those things. Because I talk to you today, tuna agree to fulani. If I don't put it down, I'll forget. Next time you call me, I'll confuse you for a different lender. It was crazy. 86 lenders. So sometimes when I see people give up because they owe one person, two people, well, we cannot compare the situations. One thing I understand and appreciate is that pressure from the trap of debt is serious pressure. It's pressure to be respected. Whether you owe one person or 1 million people. But the danger of owing many people is that, every person you owe is a pressure point. When those people choose to raid, you're in trouble. My Mondays were hot. Kwa ofisi nimeka hivi, ni laptop inanizuia. If people could read the things that were happening to me, it was terrible.
It's Monday up on the call zote.
Monday the call zote. And when you're in that state, the promises you make don't make sense. Unanipatia pressure na kuambia boss Monday. Landlord na pressure yake boss Monday afternoon. So Monday is here I told you Monday by 2. I don't know how to work a miracle for money to happen by 2. So niko kwa ofisi, I'm supposed to be serving the bank, but at the back of my mind, 2 is approaching very fast. I like telling guys, if you want your time to move fast, just borrow recklessly. Time will fly when you've made promises to pay. So that was my life. And that was painful. So I started that journey. And it was beginning to make sense. But now, as I was doing it, another thing that was conflicting or confusing is that even as I was suffering myself, surprisingly, I was also helping people manage their debt. Right from the bank, I started feeling a conflict between what the bank expects me to do and what I feel called to do. There's many times I've called customers aside when I sense that they are borrowing themselves into trouble. And I call you to a meeting room and ask you, are you sure you need this money now? You see, the bank expects me to lend.
That's how they make them.
But I can see, excuse me, I can see you are in trouble. And I would call you aside. I would decline many applications when I sense we are not helping this person. But you see, that's a conflict. You get? So, like the days I would go for collection, when you send me to collect, I need to bring money. But I go to a homestead and I realize that they're in big trouble. And I tell my team, wait for me kidogo. And I start engaging these guys. I was not sent there to engage them. But within me, I have some push to encourage these guys. Even though I came to push them for money, something within me tells me I need to encourage them and try to even lessen their burden by suggesting a few things they can do. So later on, as I'm battling my journey, I'm also asking God. By that time, I had discovered my gift in speaking, in inspiration. And I'm asking God, what is the role of the exposure I have in credit? Why do I have to work in credit departments? What is the role of my experience in debt? Why all this pain? Is it just useless in my life? Because I'm a strong believer that everything that happens to us in life has a bearing on who we ultimately are supposed to be. So I'm pestering God with those questions. I'm trying to understand, why do I have to go through this? So one day, I was doing that Ngara bridge, crossing that bridge. That's when some light came. And I figured out, you can actually inspire people in the world of money, especially debt. What you've gone through, the experience you've had at the bank is big enough to say something to some people. I'm doing the stairs and the idea is loading. Right? And the idea loaded, I was going for a meeting. When I got to that meeting, I requested for some time, picked my notebook and downloaded the idea. Nikaandika, nikamaliza. And that's how what I'm doing was born. So initially, I knew I am cut for the speaking and the training world. By the time I'm figuring out the relevance of debt, I had just resigned from the bank to come here and begin my training business. Okay? But then I get the revelation about debt. So I have to go back to the drawing board and restructure everything and bring in the main agenda, personal financial management, and a touch for the businesses. So that's when I sit down and come up with the debt clinic. I realize, I wish that time I had someone I could talk to. There are people who are suffering in silence out here, many of them. What if I create a platform where they can just come and open up? So I call this thing the debt clinic. And I tell guys, look, here is something. Kujeni tuongee. I don't look at the debt clinic as my business cash cow. That is not where I make the most of my money from. But let's just come and talk. When you speak out, you lessen the burden. Then you also hear about other people's experiences. You get encouraged. And then you can begin your journey to the top. So that is how I found myself here. And then I also had started writing. Kidogo kidogo while I was still at the bank.
Yeah.
So by the time I was quitting, I quit in December. That particular December, I was releasing my third book. Right? So at least I had started writing. And the reason for my writing is to create another avenue of sharing the information that I have, because I may not be able to reach everyone. I may not be able, thanks to social media these days, but I may not be able to get to everyone with every detail. So that is the reasoning behind the writing.
Hey, first of all, what a story. Because like you say rightly, debt is killing people. What are some of the stories you've come across in your debt clinic, in your journey?
Yes.
Like, just I want the stories to be out there so that people realize they're not on their own.
Yes.
And there are people who are going through worse.
Wow. There's so many.
Yeah.
Let's pick a few. So one day, I get a call.
Yeah.
This call is coming from Director HR of one of our banks. And the HR is saying that we've heard about what you're doing.
Yeah.
And we would want to engage you on behalf of, rather for some of our employees.
Yeah.
Procedurally, we're supposed to sack them because of financial misconduct.
Yes.
But we just feel from a humanitarian perspective, maybe we need to journey with them. So I say, okay, we book a meeting and I go. So I'm given the brief. The brief is of a member of staff. And I share this because it's allowed me to share. I use it sometimes. He even comes to share himself. And this is a guy who is trapped in debt. He's borrowed from Shylocks.
Yeah.
And they have come to the HR many times, threatening his life. They tell HR, if you don't pay us from his salary, tunamngoja hapa chini na mapanga. So you're working and you're told kuna wase wanakusubiri hapa chini na mapanga. So you see, even your stability in the mind is affected. You cannot even deliver at the workplace.
Yes.
And this is the danger of the trap of debt. The trap of debt affects every area of your life. So the problem is not debt. The problem is when you get trapped in debt, in that cycle of borrowing to pay, to borrow again, there is trouble. And one of the things that affected is your mind. And when your mind is eaten up, you are wasted. So the guy is in so much pain, so much pressure. Now, the employer has tried all avenues. The guy is nearing retirement.
Yeah.
Yes.
Retirement.
Retirement. Actually, I think he had about two years to retire.
Oh my goodness.
So even if they were to think about lending him to take up the other debts that he has, it is not possible. So I'm given the brief. I look at the brief. So I request for time to think. So I go home, I look at the thing in detail, I try to think. Most of the times when you give me your story, I spot cracks. Then I use the cracks to try and figure out a solution.
Yeah.
Now this case was tight. They had tried almost everything you would want to try. Remember, it's a bank, so some of the things I know, they also know. So I look at this case, then I book a meeting with the family, the man and the wife. Actually, this was one very inspiring family because they are on the same page in their money story. I rarely find such. I have facilitated very many couples trainings, and you can see the disconnect between how they handle their money.
Yes.
But this was one couple that understands their story very well. Wife anapick story, anafikisha mahali, mzee anapick. Anasema before that, this had happened. Wife anapick story. That was very amazing.
Yeah.
So I listened to them. I probe, have you tried this? Have you tried this? I realized they have tried a lot of things. That was a difficult story because the good bit about it is that the family did not disintegrate. because I've also met cases where families have disintegrated because they can no longer function financially. I don't know. I said, let us pray. I didn't see a crack.
Yeah.
So I tell God, look, just give us a way out of this. So in the course of my thinking, I was able to figure out something that I suggested to. I wrote a paper, like a proposal to the CEO then of that bank, requesting them to bend a few rules in favor of this guy, because I figured that was the only way for him. Luckily, it worked, but he had many lenders, so we had to negotiate with all those lenders to reach a certain point, and I thank God it worked. That's just one scenario. Second scenario is a guy. These are many guys who want to commit suicide. So they've borrowed and you reach to a point where you realize I won in Mbele. So because maybe you've been hiding this from people, you figure that if it comes out, it will be more shameful. So you choose to end it. I have many cases. The first one I got when I was a debt collector, and the guy had hidden. He knew the bank had forgotten. So I investigated. I realized where he was hiding, and I raided. And that day, the guy came and told me, I think I don't need to fight more. I need to go. And many others keep writing, I am going. The worst was, because this one, I didn't know what to do. I was away. So the guy calls me. He's a cop. The guy tells me, my name is so-and-so. I just stumbled on what you're doing. But in front of me is a gun. I have written a note. And I'm about to go. He's a cop. Guy tells me, madeni imenifikisha mwisho. I'm about to go. Now I'm away. The guy is in Meru. And this is not something I would say, let me send some rescue mission. No. So at this time, as he's narrating, I'm trying to ask myself, so how do I approach this? So I begin engaging him. I've realized that what I do is not far off from what counselors do. So I also spend some good time trying to just read a lot about how human beings think, how human beings behave, and such things. So I just engage him in some conversation. And the guy speaks out, the guy pours out what he's been through. He's no longer able to sustain his family. He's even afraid of going home to meet his family because he has nothing. The salary is taken up. The little net that comes, he has also borrowed off payslip. So kanaingia kakienda. So he has nothing. He's tried everything. He can't see light. So the guy has decided to go. So I engage him in a conversation, a long story too open, and yakum is to I relax. So the guy relaxes, no bigger story, and then I give him my story. I give him my story. Credit yake inaisha na call. Tukaongea. Tukamaliza. The guy gave a sigh of relief. No solution yet, but your conversation. And the guy said, when I come to Nairobi, I'll look for you. So at least he's not pulling the trigger. At least he's saying, when I come to Nairobi, I'll look for you. And that was also another encouraging story because the guy is still alive. So that is the nature of the conversations in my phone a lot of times.
So for this particular class that we call Becoming CEO, we've realized that for people to achieve greatness, sometimes we set up our kids to be great, So these conversations start when we're very young, and your parents or the influence, the environment around you shapes you towards success. From your experience with your clinic, does upbringing also shape us towards this type of disruption?
Yes, in a big way. Actually, there's a study that said that many adults, their behavior will be explained 60% by their upbringing, the environment they had when they were growing up. The way we will parent our children, the way we will live life, the way we will handle money is influenced by how we were brought up. Let me start with myself.
Yeah.
I grew up in a setting where I'm living with my mom. My father was an absentee father. Let me not call him absentee, really. In the setting of those days, it was not absentee. That was the order of the day.
Yes.
All right? He's in Nairobi. We are in the village.
Yeah.
So he will come maybe once in 3 months. So that's about 4 times in a year. All right?
Yeah.
So when he's coming, of course, we are all waiting for him and he has so many things to attend to. So we've not sat down to have a conversation about anything in life.
Yeah.
But I had my grandfather who was very wise. And the little wisdom I have about life came from him quite a lot. So he would sit me down and talk to me about certain things in life. Of course, some of them would sound outdated, and this is the danger we have with the young people. Sometimes kuna kitu unaambia msee anaona mazee hii iko outdated. Yet there is some wisdom that never gets outdated.
Absolutely.
After a while, someone calls you and says, "Hey, mazee, I wish I listened," because it wasn't outdated. So a guy would talk to me about savings and those things, and well, I think he was just doing his duty as a parent then. So we were struggling quite a lot financially because si lazima tungoje jamaa pate atume. He was not employed. He was a juakali guy in Nairobi. So job ikipatikana si ndio atatuma. Isipopatikana si tuna survive. So then I have grown, gone through school, and I've come to campus. So I come to campus here in Nairobi, and now I meet different people from different places. I meet people who, when I'm using 100 shillings for almost a week, I meet a guy who is saying today he's tried so much he's used a K in a day. So I'm beginning to get challenged. Okay. So later on I get employed, but I have a fight within myself, a fight to compensate for the lost time, to do things I wish I did when I was growing up. And conversations about money begin with the mind. If you listen to many of the things I talk about, I'm targeting your mind. I'm not so much into formulas and those things. I want us to have our minds open, because it is the mind that is shut. That is why poverty is not about money. Poverty is here. The root is here. That is why instant millionaires don't last, many of them. It's because when they get the money, they spend the money in a poverty way. You want to eat all the meals you missed. You want to drive all the vehicles you missed. You get. So you find someone buying 5 cars at a go. Someone remembering that they can actually fly every time they want to go wherever, even when it's not necessary. They're spending that money in a poverty way. They need to adjust the mind. So my mind was not cured. And that's why when I got employed, I started spending money the way I was doing. I forgot about the wisdom of saving that my grandfather gave me, and I remembered I have a lot of catching up to do.
Thank you. That is so,
you get? And that messed me up. And living for others is a big one. Doing things for other people to approve. Doing things for other people to wow at you. Hey, mazee ako na ndainoma. Hey, umeona phone yake? Then I like saying, if you borrow because you've seen someone with a nice phone and you don't have the money, so you borrow to get a similar phone, you're not borrowing for yourself, you're borrowing for them. Because, if you buy that phone and you come with it to the office, upate jamaa kona simu ingine better than that one, you feel frustrated.
very true.
So, upbringing has a big bearing on how we behave when we are adults. Until you become deliberate to break some of those behaviors that you acquired, then there's going to be trouble. So until the day my eyes opened and I realized I have to do a lot of learning, I have to do a lot of unlearning of the things that were already stored as my software and load a new software. That is when things started happening. Right? So it's true, yes, upbringing has a lot, both positive and negative.
And something nowadays I'm pushing a lot is in African setup, we never talk about money. I don't know why. And we glorify poverty. I have never understood why. And parents out there watching, Manze, if you can start having these conversations with your kid about money and debt and saving, when they're even 5 years old, I know I keep saying that, what was my age? But it's true. A lot of us, including myself, just like you, I had a poverty mentality. Mi nimezaliwa nikagrowia ghetto, Dandora. So the minute I started making money, bro, nilikuwa naishi kwa bed sitter but naendesha Mercedes. It was an old Mercedes, but still, when you think about it, bro, what are your priorities? You know? And this is something I've just come to realize the other day, that I still have a poverty mindset, a poor person's mindset, and I need to unlearn. And that's why I'm here in class today.
Hey, it's a big process. It eats into so many things. Thank God you've mentioned about parenting. In 2018, I came up with something after thinking about just what you thought about. I came up with something I call financial parenting. And I'm challenging parents, telling parents, look, you need to start having conversations about money with your children. And I quite understand, maybe the poverty upbringing and the poverty mindset makes many parents feel inadequate. So kuna wale wazazi usema, ngoje niomoke kwanza, then I can have something to tell my children. That is not true. By the time you are waiting, you know, they are growing. They are also forming, and their software is loading. So by the time ushaomoka, you come back, you lost them. So we need to start from as early as possible. Actually, psychologically speaking, from age 3, they're able to start grasping some things. So there is a lot of age-appropriate conversations you can have with your children with regard to money. First, with regard to acquiring money. Do your children know what you do to make money? Right now, you meet so many people who have embraced shortcuts in life. It's because we're not talking about how money is made. We must be able to mold the relationship between effort and reward. Let your children know what you do for money. If possible, go with them to where you work. If it's a business, end now. And I see Indians do this, and it helps in molding and mentoring their young ones. If it's a workplace, and on a Saturday, it's possible for you to go with them at least once in a while, they will understand that when mom lives here, she goes somewhere. She does some things, then she waits for money at the end of the month. When dad lives here, he goes to some place, he does something, and waits for money. We must know the importance of this waiting period. Because in the process of wealth creation, there are no shortcuts.
Absolutely.
It's a process.
Very true.
Now, the beauty of a process is that the waiting aspect must be there. So people must learn to earn money. Another thing I call the money mentalities. I have 4 of them. The stealing mentality, begging mentality, borrowing mentality, and earning mentality. The way people think when they want to acquire money. There are those who have a stealing mentality. They necessarily don't need to be thieves on the streets, but they're guys of deals. The corrupt guys and the fraudsters and those guys. Then there are the begging guys. Those ones want money for free. So they'll be calling you, hey, Mazeni, end month, they know you have earned something. Hey, boss, ni sort na kapanch. They're not promising to pay back. No, you help them. Okay? And those who believe that they can get money for nothing. Then we have those with the borrowing mentality. Those who say, ni sort, yangu ikikam, nitakusort. Now this is dangerous, because that's a ticket to the trap of debt. But the group I want to invite all of us to is the earning mentality, where you go to work and wait for pay. Open your shop and wait for profit. Or invest your money and wait for return. So we must talk to our children about money. They have to know how you do your shopping. Go with them to the supermarket. Let them see how you make decisions. So there's a lot we can talk about that. That's a whole conversation. But I support the fact that parents need to start engaging their children from as young as possible. Let them learn about savings. Wabaie uto to saving boxes. Waanza kutupa tu vitu hapo. But before they get the to vitu they are throwing there, make them understand the relationship between effort and reward. Don't do child labor, but let them appreciate that before they get a shilling for a sweet, they helped mom to sweep. You have to draw the line between child labor and molding, all right? But you cannot just be sweeping and the children are seated and doing nothing. Mold, when they come, we have parents who are saying my children should not go through what I went through. So what we are doing is we are creating yes children. We are yes parents ourselves. So when they come, Dad, I need a toy. Yes. Mom, I need a bike. Yes. So we've not taught our children no. And that's why after school, they can't knock doors. When they knock a door and they're told no, they can't take it. They commit suicide because it's rejection. They've not been molded to accommodate rejection, to accommodate a no as an answer. We have a lot of work to do. That's a huge conversation for another day.
I'm sorry I have to bring this up, but could this also be the problem? Even as a country, we're in so much debt.
It's a big problem.
Yeah, because as a generation, and we always are having conversations with my peers, and we realize, hata kama uligrow ya Central, Western, Nairobi, Rift Valley, we all tend to have the same story of how we were brought up.
Yes.
And is it because in our society we've never had deep conversations about money, such that to a point where now the people in leadership are also not good at managing our country's finances? That's why as a country we like trillions of debt.
I agree with you. Before I come to the country, let me come to the company first, to the business.
Yes.
The business, okay? If you struggle financially as a person, chances are very high that your business will struggle.
So true.
Okay?
Goodness.
Many times when I read stories of corporates that are collapsing, businesses that are going down because of financial mismanagement, my question first is, who is the leader of that company? Well, it's a theory that needs to be proven, but I have asserted that chances are very high that if you study them, they're struggling financially.
It is so true.
Okay? Now, let's come to the country. We have a leadership that, we do not put people in leadership on merit basis a lot of times. We consider other factors that are barbaric, if we are to describe them properly. And those are the people who will end up leading ministries, leading key institutions, and they have budgets of billions of money that they need to manage when they cannot manage their own shillings, their own thousands. Then we also have people who are still harboring the poverty mindset. So they came from trouble. They now have chance to compensate for the time they lost, for the things they missed in life. You tell me, you hear someone has embezzled billions of shillings.
Yes.
A billion one is so huge that if you got it today, and you choose not to work, and you choose to eat 30,000 shillings per day, it will take you years, close to 100 of them. Eating 30K per day, not working, umekaa tu home, umedoze. Now, if you have stolen a few billions, what would make you want to steal more and more and more? Kwani you are Methuselah. You will live for 900 and something years. What are you doing?
I remember listening to what's his name? Imen Potea, the guy in charge of anti-corruption. No. What's his name? Imen Potea. Itakuja tu. But nakumbuka, I was just watching an interview akisema, unfortunately, the guys were even going to arrest with these corruption cases. They're so bad at handling money that some of the things they've bought, even if we recover as a government, we can't. Unasikia tu mtu because they have money and they need to hide it. Amenunua shamba somewhere you can't even.
Yes, they do crazy things. And let me tell you why then it is difficult for a country to break free from the trap of debt. One, the truth is that we are trapped in debt as a country.
Yeah.
Now, when I train about debt management, there is a formula that I like bringing forward. I call it the ADSA, four-stage approach. The first A is acceptance. Before you break free, you must accept you're in trouble. Now, as a country, we haven't gotten to the point of acceptance.
Right.
Okay? When you hear one leader say, we are okay financially, when you hear the populace, the masses are crying. You and I know we are struggling with debt as a country.
Yes.
But you will hear one leader say, we are managing our debt situation. We are in denial. We haven't accepted. That means then we cannot work out a solution.
Yes.
We can't, because we are still in denial.
Very true.
Right? Until the day we will get leadership that can accept we are in trouble. And we need to start changing the way we do things. If I see you still borrowing today, borrowing to finance lifestyle, borrowing in the name of infrastructure building, but when we ask for what you did, a breakdown of what infrastructure has been developed courtesy of the debt, we don't see, then we can only see diversion of borrowed funds. When we see you borrowing to repay existing debt, we can only see a trapped institution, a trapped state. And that is the problem that we have. The guys up there have not accepted that we are in trouble. The guys up there still have a poverty mindset. They want to grab. They still want to borrow more so that a portion of what they are borrowing can go to them. They still don't believe that in life, you only need so much to survive, to live. How many acres of land do you need? How many vehicles do you need to drive at any given point?
Because so many people watching us are struggling with debt. Just, so you said the first step is acceptance.
Yes.
Second step.
Good. Let me just encourage them first.
Okay.
You see, sometimes
Sometimes
when we see the country going through what it's going through, we get frustrated. Many people get disappointed. Many people are hopeless. Many people describe this country with very huge words because we can't see hope. If we see, guys, but we are now in excess of 7 trillion in debt. A lot of the money we collect in revenue goes to finance debt, and we have to borrow more and keep borrowing. So when we see that, we want to give up. We have seen people who wish they were born in different countries and things like those. Here is my take. As we wait for that leadership that we think is ideal, let's come back to ourselves. There is something you and I can do at our personal level to lessen the burden. Because if the country is reckless in managing public finance, and you're also reckless in managing the little that you get, then your problems are big. But if you are able to manage properly the little that you have, then even if we have global problems courtesy of mismanagement of our public funds, at least you can survive 2 more days on what you have. You get? Because the mismanagement at the public level will tamper with prices. We will see life becoming expensive, right? But if you earned your 20 Gs and you also went on a lifestyle spree and you use the money in 2 days, it is different from if you manage the money well to take you for 10 days. If it took you for 10 days, you will complain less about what is happening with the country. All right? Then, once we can master how to deal with money at our individual levels, we can begin thinking of forming part of the leadership and take our ideas to that particular level. All right? So then, back to debt management. The first step is acceptance. At acceptance, you're speaking to your mind. You are rewiring yourself. You are telling yourself that you are responsible for where you are today. You are stopping to blame people. I still meet people who say, why not for my wife? I wouldn't be in debt. Why not for my husband? Why not for... The moment you stop blaming, then you can realize that you're beginning to accept. You're beginning to realize that you're in trouble and you're part of that problem. You take ownership. Acceptance means that you're accepting that this is not cast in stone. It is not the end. You can actually begin your life upwards again. You're accepting that the best time to start working your way up is now. You're accepting that no one will do it for you except you. So that's the first step. It's a conversation in the mind. The second is the D, disclosure. Disclosure you are saying that you cannot effectively come out of a hole if you don't acknowledge how deep the hole is. So you have to sit down and ask yourself, hii mess inatoshanaje? Now this is the homework I'm giving to our viewers. Sit down and do a list of everyone you owe. I discovered the average human mind is not comfortable writing down a list of the people you owe. Ni rahisi kuandika list ya how you will spend money, how you will make money, how you will invest, but we forget the people we owe. But then I realized it has some magic in it. When you do that list, it gives you a picture of where you are. It starts a conversation. Ndani yako, unaanza kushangaa, maze, this list is this long. Because today if I ask you how many people you owe, your mind rushes to the big numbers.
Yeah, the big numbers.
Right?
Yes.
So you will easily tell me I owe 5 people, but when I tell you to go home and write everything including airtime advance, because it's part of your debt.
Yeah.
In fact, by the way, one of the easiest ways to tell if you're struggling financially, if you're dependent on airtime advance to the extent where you pay now to take now, it's a big sign that you're struggling financially. So write all of that. It begins to open your eyes. Then now we move to the S. The S is the strategic stage.
Yeah.
So now that you know your numbers, so what? So how do you go about it? Now the S is where we don't have a one-size-fits-all kind of solution, because different people have different circumstances surrounding them. Okay. Now the best I usually do in a general conversation like this, maybe is just to share a few tips on what someone can do to just help them come out. Maybe you can hear something that can benefit you. But I've shared most of it in that book, Breaking Free from the Trap of Debt. So now, the first thing I would suggest at the strategic stage is that you need to approach your lenders. The average mind runs away from the lender when things are thick. Now you need to break that and approach your lenders. Reach out to them, explain to them what is surrounding you. You will be so surprised that there is a lot that begins to do. You know, many people would wonder how I would manage to have 86 lenders on my back and still be able to walk
on the streets
and survive. When I started this journey, reaching out to lenders helped me a lot. Now I had to come out clean. I would call a lender and tell them, boss, let me tell you what I would never tell anyone. The truth is I'm struggling. Ukweli ni kwamba, if you continue charging me this interest, I will never finish this debt. I don't have money. Now I've paid you for this long. Is it possible that we can do something? And I spoke to all of them. That's why I had that book. Nikishaongea nayo naandika. I've talked to Phil and we have agreed this and this. We will review siku fulani. So reach out to lenders. The psychology of lending. And sorry to lenders, we are talking about the psychology of lending. Every lender feels good to know that you have their best interests at heart. The best way to demonstrate is by you reaching out, not them looking for you and they can't find you. When you reach out, every lender softens. They realize, kumbe si ati umesahau, si ati umelenga. At least you're thinking about it.
Yes.
Now, the second thing you do as you reach out is to renegotiate the terms of the debts. All right, you can renegotiate the repayment amount. Maybe you are paying 10 Gs on a particular debt. COVID happened, for example, things changed. You are no longer able to raise 10 Gs, maybe 5. So don't run away because you don't have 10. Speak out and say, look, now I can only afford 5. You'll be surprised your lender will accept the 5. Right? You could renegotiate frequency of payment. Maybe you've been paying weekly. Saa zingine nikienda mtaani utapata some people get those soft loans from some lenders where they pay weekly. Maybe busy may change sasa, you get money monthly. Speak out and explain that I'm not able to get money weekly, I will be getting money monthly. So that the cycle can change from the lender's perspective, so that you're not called a defaulter. At least you've updated them. You can change many things. You can renegotiate for duration. Maybe you're supposed to clear in the next 3 months. Things have changed, you can't see money in the next 3 months, so you can spread for a longer time. Of course, you will suffer a little in terms of interest, but that helps you have the peace of mind that you need as you go about it.
Yeah.
Another thing that you can do is to consider consolidation. When you've borrowed from many people, as I said, every lender is a pressure point.
Yes.
So, to reduce pressure points, you can also look for a bigger debt that can swallow a number of them. That helped me also a lot.
Okay.
Because from 86, I would talk to some people, tell them, look, this is what I'm going through. If you can give me this much, then I would be owing you, but that money, I have used it to kill 10 people.
Yeah.
So I've reduced my pressure points by 10.
By 10.
You get. So consolidation helps in reducing pressure point. It also helps in reducing the money you pay out to people. If you borrowed from 3 banks, you're paying here 10 Gs, 5 Gs, 7 Gs. The balances have come down. Chances are high if you borrow the outstanding total balances, you will have a loan that is repaid maybe at 10 Gs. So what you are paying these others comes back to you as disposable income, which you can use for your other things or to speed up your journey of coming out. Another thing I must mention is that you can also look at your budget. How do you spend your money? Where does your money go? Is the biggest question in the conversations of money. People think the difficult thing is making money. The difficult thing is commanding where your money goes. Many people cannot answer that question. Where does your money go? And I'm asking our viewers, where does your money go? Pesa yako yo huenda wapi? Because many people after earning, tuna scratching maze ilienda wapi? You try recollecting, nilitoa 2K, nikabuy nini, nikabuy, and you think you're budgeting. You're not budgeting, you're now accounting. Okay?
So true.
So when you look at your budget, and you can begin to track your expenditure. It will reveal things that steal your money. You will realize kuna tu vitu wewe utumia pesa kwake that are not necessary, or maybe the volumes you spend on is way too much. Maybe you need to lessen. So then you will start squeezing some more money that can help you pay your debt. Another thing that you can begin to do at that particular point is to also think income. And this is a big one. How else can you make another coin? Okay? Dependence on one stream of income is catastrophic. And I think nothing brought this point home like COVID. 2020. You see, in classroom, sometimes when we're doing these lessons and conversations, and someone will tell you need to have savings of at least 6 months and things like those. COVID has stretched us beyond 6 months. And to savings, kwa wale wachache walijaribu kusave, tulikauka, uto to savings tukaisha. But I think the lessons are now home. All right? Ask yourself what else you can do to make money. There is a lot people can do. It's just that we have boxed ourselves.
Very true.
The guys in employment think there's nothing they can do. And that is something I've shared in the book that you mentioned that is coming, Managing My Money. I have a whole chapter on making an extra coin, just to try and open our thinking. Okay? It is highly possible that you have a skill that you can monetize. You have a talent that you can monetize. You're sitting on it because you are employed somewhere. Is it possible that you can write? As I mentioned, I started writing when I was still employed. And much as I was selling fewer volumes then, but that was a coin coming.
Very true.
Okay? Maybe you have a skill that you can monetize. Maybe you can do some private tuition somewhere and things like those. And you begin to get an extra coin. An extra coin has 2 powerful things it does. One, an extra coin will reduce your temptation of sliding further into the mess. Because today, if I told you, and sometimes you will hear people tell you, if you are in debt, stop digging further. But the dilemma is here. Today I tell you, stop digging further. It is mid-month. You have nothing.
I need to survive.
And you have a family. Jioni unafaa urudi na ka packet of unga. I've told you not to borrow anymore. So utafanya? I'm not donating unga. You get? So it lessens your chances of sliding deeper into it. The second thing it does, it speeds up the process of coming out. Because if you have an extra coin, then you can clear a debt here, a mobile loan there, and something there. So that is what I can mention about the strategic stage. It's big. In that book I've shared, I think, more than 10 strategies that you
Yes.
can begin to think about. But at the clinic level, we get one-on-one. So I'm able to see your life. So I'm able to see which one can work for you and which one. But for purposes of conversation, I believe someone has had something that can begin to work for them. The last step is the A. The A is the action.
Yeah.
Hizi zote ni thoughts. Ni decisions una make. I need to reach out to my lender. I need to call so and so and negotiate and those things. It is decision. It is thoughts.
Yeah.
You must actualize by action. You see, if I want to know you have good intentions towards me, I will look at your actions towards me.
Very true.
So if I want to know that you are determined to change your financial story, let's see your actions. If you have said that you are going to reach out to your lenders, shika simu sasa, piga. Book an appointment with your lender. Enda, talk about it. So this is the stage where we roll our sleeves and begin to work. It is not a process I can tell you it will take a day, because even you did not slide into the trap of debt overnight.
Yeah.
It took you time.
Yes.
So it's going to take you time, but it's a journey that can be realized, that can be successful.
Na ututu apps tumekuja twingi sana
Hey.
tuachane na simu, tuchome simu.
Ututu vitu sasa.
Yeah.
The young people.
Yeah.
Hey, every time I have a conversation with the young people, maze ututu apps. You know, the lender is not responsible for what happens to you.
Yeah.
Because you borrowed from them. That is your work. It's my work. It is everyone's work.
Yeah.
To apps tumekuja. What they promise is convenience.
Yeah.
But what we don't see is the cost and what we are doing to ourselves. Because many people now borrow for reasons that in a good world would not allow you to borrow. We simply borrow, as I mentioned, because we qualify. Because simu imesema, your limit is now this.
Yes.
Aka temptation, my prayer is one day we get to a point where unaweza pata hiyo message that your limit is this. You smile and say, thank you very much. When I need you, I'll come.
Yeah.
Na unarudisha simu kwa mfuko. But many of us kakiring hivi. Your limit is this. Hey, thank God. Mazeni kaa ulikuwa umeambia God akupatie limit. So those apps, we have to realize that the lenders are in business of lending. And there's nothing wrong in their business. But there is everything wrong in the choices we make. When we borrow for consumption, we are burning our fingers. You know, when you borrow for consumption, you are saying two things. You are saying, one, I can't live within my means. Two, I am eating my future today.
That's true. Yeah.
So when you eat your tomorrow today, what will you eat tomorrow? Because that tomorrow surely does come.
Yes.
These stories are, you only live once. What Charan is a story. The truth is, you see, sometimes I ask guys, jana ulinisho, you only live once. What are you doing today here? Si ungeishi jana na hiyo story ishi.
Hakuna YOLO.
So YOLO, unajua YOLO, sometimes I think we stretch YOLO too far. And so we will be using ututu apps for lifestyle. Sina fuel, ka app. Sina food, ka app. Weekend imefika, twende out, ka app. Okay? But we are draining our financial muscle. End month ikifika, ukigawa ututu apps, tunamaliza everything.
So,
if you look at many people who have borrowed from those apps and are trapped in debt, they have multi-borrowed from many apps.
Yes.
Now, here is another interesting characteristic. Many of them, their borrowing is centered around a certain time in the calendar. They have what I call a calendar concentration. So utapata kama ni end month, borrowing twao tunachezea hapo is because unalipa mshwari, ati alafu unaipea grace period. Ngoja ipumue, and then you borrow again.
Immediately.
Sasa ulipe branch, alafu ipatie ka period, utoe, ulipe tala, utoe, ulipe sijui nani. There are so many these days, actually I think more than 100 of them. So utapata msee ameborrow from all of them. From the lenders, you guys look like very good borrowers, but the truth is you're suffering. The truth is you can't pay those debts because zinasupportiana. Ziko kwa chain. So hii inasupport hii, inasupport hii. So if you earn 20 Gs, by the time uchape hiyo chain ndio uchukue pesa yako huko mwisho, ishabaki 15. Hiyo ni cycle 1. So the moment you continue doing it, by the time mwaka inaisha, you don't have your 20 Gs. Ina circulate hivi inaisha mpaka una have kuborrow tena. Boss, nikopeshe kidogo na kulipa jioni, ndio ufunike shimo, ndio uchukue tena. So we have to be cautious.
I think just having this one conversation with you is not enough. I think we need you to come here again and again and again. Hapa tunaweza ongea for another 5 hours. Where can someone get your books? And in case someone wants to book that clinic and that session, how can we find you?
Now, the books... wacha tuzitaje. This is the first book I wrote. Relate Well, Live Well. This is a book about the importance of relating well with people. Life is about relationships. How you manage relationships in different areas of life determine how successful you will be in those areas. So here I've talked about relationships at a family level, that is spousal and parent-child. I've mentioned about relationships in a workplace environment, relationships in a business environment, and relationships in the social space. Venye si behave tu kwa matatu, mbona mse mwingine tu anaweza kutusi haraka kwa matatu na mwingine hawezi. What is that likely to do to different people? The second book I wrote is about this monster. Confronting fear. You know this thing that holds you back. You want to try something, unajikumbusha, I'm not ready. If I try, I will fail. They will laugh at me. Maze nitachoma do. So you only see your neighbor flourishing in an idea you had, then you're like, hii idea imekuwa yangu. I've had this idea. What happened is because something crippled you. A lot of times it's this thing. So here I've shared about how the environment can put fear in people. How parents put fear in their children with all good intentions. I've tried to put some light on how we were brought up and how some of the things that happened in our upbringing affected our interaction with fear. And I've shared about the fear of failure and the fear of the unknown. Then I've also tried to suggest how to confront them when they come. Because we can't eliminate fear from life ultimately, entirely. But when it comes, how do you begin to confront it, right? Then the third book I wrote is this one. You Can Do Better. This is the only promise I have. I don't have many promises. The truth is that everyone in life can do better. We are having this conversation because we are hopeful that our tomorrow has chance to look better than today, and even yesterday combined. So in this book, I'm just sharing tips on how to embrace a growth life. Right? I've shared tips about tips that those that have grown in life have used to grow. Simple things, like how to tune your attitude, like running your own race without having to compete and compare yourself to others. The power of discipline, humility, action, and things like those ones. You find them here. Then the fourth book I wrote is this one. Debt is good. Only if you master it. Very important. Only if you master it. Now, this book is speaking to the borrower, equipping you with things that will help you make sober decisions if you must borrow. What do you consider before you approach a lender? Before you pick your phone and start swiping and going to those apps, what conversation should you have within yourself? So I've given you things that you need to consider. I've opened your world about personal loans, for example, those things that people call top-ups. When can they kill you? When can they benefit you? I've talked about salary advance. Those are simple things that begin to cripple people. I've talked about Shylocks, and I've also given a bonus chapter on how debt affects families. Real stories that I've encountered, just sampled a few of them. Then the fifth one is this one. Breaking free from the trap of debt. The last bit of our conversation, the ADSA approach that I just mentioned. So this book has two parts. The first part, I call it demystifying the trap of debt. To give you an understanding, because you cannot break free from prison if you don't know you are in one. There are many people who are actually struggling, but they don't know they're struggling. Absolutely. You get? So that's the first part, painting a picture of how that prison looks like. I have lived in that prison. I understand the corners of that prison. So I've explained how it affects your health, how it affects your careers, how it affects your relationships, how it affects your financial life entirely. So that is part A. Then part 2 now is the journey, the breaking free itself from acceptance, the details of acceptance, to disclosure, to strategies, and then to action. Breaking free from the trap of debt. All these books are available on mzizi.com.
Okay.
So if you just go to mzizi.com, look for Roy Okonji. All my books will be there. Mzizi.com is a market.
All right.
So all the books will be there.
So put it on the description
yes.
of this video.
Then alternatively, you can also reach out through this number, 0713 497172. For all your inquiries, all your whatever's, you can write there. If you need a book, just text or WhatsApp and say, I need this book. We will send you all the entire catalog. You take a pic, and then we process how you receive the book. Yeah.
Last thing before we leave, I always ask my guests, for you to write 5 books, and the 6th one at the publishers, I have tried writing. I think there's nothing that demands personal discipline like writing. For you to write 5 books and the 6th one at the publishers, it means you're a man of discipline, like you're a man who properly plans his day. What's your day like? And that's one thing. Two,
niko serious.
Bro, kuandika vitabu 5, man, it's your joke. Na bado unapiga job zingine.
I'm humble.
Yeah, and also, let me just hear what your day looks like.
Wow.
From morning.
Now, my day is an amorphous day.
Yeah.
It takes different shapes because the nature of my job is not a fixed nature.
Yeah.
But there are certain routines that have to happen, which are important in my mentioning. That when I wake up early, at most 5, I'm up. The day has to start with a prayer to discover the day. I'm a strong believer in what God does. I strongly believe that I don't think I have anything of my own. All these things we are talking about, I think it is Him. So I start my day with a prayer. I will do a few stretches here and there for blood to circulate well and what have you. And then depending on how the day looks like in terms of appointments and what have you, because I determine that before I go to bed, I'm asking myself, so how am I starting?
The day.
So maybe there are people who have booked for clinic sessions. So I need to know, I need to meet, so because the clinic session is not in a brick and mortar kind of setting. I didn't want to have a place that would easily be stigmatized, so that ukiambia msee naenda place fulani anajua wewe. So it's a flexible arrangement. So you will reach out and we agree we meet at such a place. So that is flexible. So nobody will ever know that we met and we were talking about what and where we met. So I get to know before I go to bed, tomorrow I'm meeting so and so in this place, or we have an interview like this in such and such a place, like that. So I have a picture of how the day will start rolling before it starts rolling. So once I've done those 2 things, and then I must read. I must read something positive.
Interesting.
Because how you begin your day determines a lot about how the day will go, right? A lot of times we have this challenge of starting the day on social media. Aka kasimu. You know, and it's very enticing. Unamka hivi ukiwasha hivi to alert tushaanza kukuja to notification nini. Actually, it can actually waste you a lot of your time because ati una catch up. Una catch up. But before you know it, it can disorient your day. It will waste your time, but beyond wasting your time, it can start you on a wrong footing. Unaweza soma story fulani hapo sad sana ikutoe. Upoteze tu rada mapema. So I have to read something positive. This something positive has to be a book I'm currently reading, or an article, or I watch something that is inspiring, that is just positive. And then I'll be set for the day. Then I'll look at how the day looks like. Sometimes it's a full day training, or it's a conversation here and there, or a speaking engagement somewhere, and things like those. When I do not have engagements, then I'm creating the content. So that's when I get to sit and begin to create. Or sometimes a client comes and says, we are having this event, and the theme is this, and we would want you to come and speak. So maybe that theme is new. So now I have to sit down and create. Other clients will give you a scenario. My employees are going through this. I suspect they may be suffering in this particular way. And then so my work is to sit down, figure out what they're suffering from, and then try to propose a solution. So that is what I do with my creation moment. And that is also the time I can figure out the books. Now, interestingly for me, the writing will not be difficult so much because it flows. Unaona venye tuna have conversation. That's how I write. And for anyone who might want to be scared at the books zimeandikwa na kizungu gani, I speak the way I write. So kama umeelewa hii conversation, you can understand the book. So what I do is this. After I have had a conversation for a while, for example, nikae chini nianze kuongea about breaking free from the trap of debt. So I'll have trainings and talks, and so I have chance for people to challenge me, ask questions, and things like those. After a while, this thing is at the back of my mind. Hii story ukiniamsha saa ngapi tutaipiga. So now I sit down and say, we need a book on this. So nakaa chini natengeneza skeleton. Hii kitabu ikayaje? Ikae hivi. So itakuwa na chapters zinaguzia hapa na hapa. Once I have a skeleton, the book is done. My work is now to set time. Hii kitabu nitakuwa naiandika siku ngapi in a week? Time gani? So that nikikaa chini nimejidedicate. So I need to write. Kuna point fulani unafika book inakwama. You need to research. Because you had a certain thought, umepita place fulani umepata thought ingine imeichallenge. So now you need to research. So ita pause. Uendelee ku research mpaka u accept, ufike consensus ndani yako, then you proceed. It's a question of just planning your time. And now having the discipline to follow the plan. It is never enough to plan. By the way, wase wengi who plan,
but discipline
ni kama budgeting. Wase wengi wameattend lessons, classes za budgeting na story kama hizo. Wataandika budget, but saa leo ikiland tutakumbuka budget after do imeisha. So it's about just being disciplined to follow the plan you have set in place, but there are important things that must happen. So before the day ends, I have to spend time with my children. Very important. Now, COVID, ilipo happen, we had time to stay with children. Kuna wazazi wali have a problem because they are never at home. Sasa wako na watoi wanarukaruka kila mahali, ndio how you get worked up. Stress levels were so high. Of course, wengine kukaa na spouse na wako wamezoea kukaa na spouse. Vitu mingi zile happen. Okay? So if we make it a habit, mapema. So I have to sit with them, tuone stories za homework, ni aje, nini, tuonge stories zetu kidogo, na depending on how the day looks. Because zingine, maybe if I'm developing training content, hiyo ni kitu thick. So utapata maybe niko na time kidogo. Maybe nataka kuban midnight oil pia, ndo kama ni kesho tuone story itakuwaje. So by and large, the things that must happen is the way I will start the day. And then jioni, I must bond with the family. I must bond with my kids. I must bond with my wife. Very important. Because these people are my pillars. Hizi stories zote zikishaisha, ni home narudi. When I was struggling in debt, they held me. Unfortunately for me, and this I share when I'm handling couple sessions, my wife was not aware of what I was going through in the beginning. Okay? Nilikuwa nimekava venye unajua kimwanaume tunasema tumekanyagia. Maze unakanyagia story, maziguembezi na mea unarealize hapana. I found peace the day I disclosed. Ambia maze, we've been living a lie. The truth is, hii life hatuwezi sustain. I am in problems. But then the support that came from that end, I will never forget. Because she said one statement. She told me that we are in this together. That is everything. She didn't have the money to help me pay. At that time, I actually think she was out of employment at the time I was disclosing. But that statement made me respect her more, made me be easy. I no longer needed to struggle hiding things. Mazi hata on a phone, napiga simu na lenders, sijui nini. Now my phone would stay on the table. Lender akipiga, I can easily explain. This is one of them. You get. So sometimes we put ourselves in a lot of pressure because of hizo story. Then what else? We also have, I also have part of these conversations on my YouTube channel.
Oh, yes.
Roy Okonji. Wase wa check tu, wa subscribe, tuongee, kuna tu videos twingi hapo tu short, tu kukufungua tu venye mawazo inafikiria. Na tuendelee tu kuongea.
Roy, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you too for having me.
Yeah, for accepting our invitation. Asante. This, I know it's a conversation. If you allow, karibu tena.
No problem. Anytime.
Yeah, because I think debt is a big deal in this country, and we need to talk about it and have these conversations. Thank you for teaching this class of mine. Tuko wengi huko, najua hapa ni mimi na wewe, but wenye wako nyuma hizo kamera ni wengi. So thank you for being our teacher today.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Right.
Maybe before to phone.
Yes.
Kuna parting shot, sindio?
Yes, piga hiyo
parting shot.
Yeah. Right.
I like saying this in such conversations, is a pesa. If you want to go far financially, one thing I've discovered is that you must be willing, you must be ready, you must be bold enough to make unpopular decisions. Very important.
Wow.
Very important. Wacha tukafungia hapo.
Boss, madam, make unpopular decisions. Okay? Ametuambia one of the best things is start your morning with a positive message. So these conversations are also available on SoundCloud. Yeah, we have a podcast there. Look up for Field Director. So as you're driving to work or you're going to work, plug in the kwa gari yako, and ukisikiza hizi conversation, you'll start on a positive day. I want to thank Baraza Media. Hii place ina kafiti, they always give us the space. Asanteni sana. And yeah, tuendelee. So tupatane next week for the next class. Ingia hapo kwa comments, uliza maswali. We have Roy's details on the description box. Reach out to him. If you want him to come over again, sema hapo hivyo. Asante sana.